I think in order to have the best world possible, I do kind of believe in the mentality that we have to kind of go back to the bare bones and rebuild.
Hey everyone, it's Samantha, and welcome back to another episode of Paths. Paths is a program of LGBT tech that is focused on visibility and inclusion of LGBTQ+ folks in STEAM. Paths podcast allows us to talk to professionals across the LGBTQ+ community in various STEAM fields and get to hear their stories, from their background to how they got to where they are, to their advice for others on how to get into their fields and industries. Everyone's paths vary, are unique, and are incredibly insightful. Before we jump into this month's episode, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to show your support and never miss another episode. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome in.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and for talking to us today. So just to get started, could you start with your name, your pronouns, and how your friends would describe you?
Yeah, sure. My name is Chidi Adeyemi. My pronouns are they, them. And I think my friends would describe me as bubbly, fun, and grounded.
I love that. I love the mix of bubbly and grounded at the same time. Awesome. And then how do you identify within the LGBTQ+ community, as well as if there's any other identities that you want to talk about?
Sure. So I ID as a queer person. I am a trans person of color. I ID as non-binary.
Awesome. And then could you tell us a little bit about what you do professionally? And if you could describe it to someone who's never heard of it before, how would you describe it?
Sure. So currently I'm halfway through getting my master's in public health, concentrating in community health, but most of my background has been working in community health centers, mainly as a PrEP and Hep C patient navigator and as a case manager. So I would say I do a lot of people work. I help people in a crisis and get them to a slightly better place than where they were 30 minutes ago.
I love that, in the sense of any little bit of progress is progress, right?
Yes.
I don't need you to be perfect. I just need it to be a little bit better, and we'll work from there.
Yes.
I love that. And can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you live now, and what community was like in both of those spaces?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in England in quite a small community called Norwich. It is very rural, very flat, lots of cows. I kind of lived in the one city in an extremely rural area. It was quite different to New York, but I moved over here when I was 18 for college, and I have been in New York for 10 years since. And I've spent most of my time living in Brownsville and Brooklyn.
Awesome. And then coming into New York, what did the community look like to you in terms of like spaces or people or how you interact with people? Because I know you're already doing a lot of community work with your job, but how do you differentiate that also in your personal life and building community that's more geared towards you and your own development?
Yeah, sure. So I would say a lot of my core friend group I met during college through like the queer and trans people of color group and through the friends that we have all made since then. And I feel like there is quite a close-knit community in some areas of like queer Brooklyn, especially among like the Cutie Park community. And I feel very lucky just to be a part of that. The fact that like a lot of my friends organize events, I'm able just to do chill hangouts to them hosting drag night. It's great.
Awesome. Do you remember when you first started understanding your identity as part of the community, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was when I was quite young. So this was back when I lived in England, which again, it was very white, not many people of color, next to no other Black people. But when I was about 5 or 6 on the playground, there was this kissing game called Gay Chicken. And it was pretty much whoever would pull away last won. And I was like, wow, I'm the reigning champion of this. Maybe that means I want to kiss girls. So from a pretty young age, I kind of had these thoughts, but I knew that wasn't really the space to like say them out loud. So I was like, I'll think about this internally and we'll marinate. And for my trans identity, I would say similar, but that I felt a lot more that I couldn't really unpack that until like I was in like a much safer space. So really I had a lot of these feelings, especially as a teenager, but I was like, you know what? You're going to leave for university, hopefully, if possible, leave the country. We'll open that box up there, and that's what I did.
Kind of like new place, new start, new beginnings, and
yes,
being able to be authentically yourself when no one has anything predetermined about you.
Yes, pretty much.
I don't want to speak for you too, if that's not correctly. And then, were there any role models growing up that are like vividly or fond memories that you have?
Well, I always think of Cecilia Gentili. I've had the pleasure to work among people who have worked among her and like worked on projects that she had to, and like hear her speak, and it was just so powerful, and like she really guided the work I did towards like harm reduction, and just it brings me so much joy and like light to like think about her and speak about her, and her memory will just live on in all of us forever and ever, and I just do believe that.
I love that. And I know that you just mentioned it in terms, but how would you define harm reduction for those who may not have heard of that term or like that methodology before?
Harm reduction is meeting someone where they are and listening to them about where they are. So for me, what's really essential is that everything is very patient-centered. It's up to them to decide what they want to do, and you're just there to help facilitate and offer information. And I think that's so powerful, because if you have the knowledge, like you really can make an informed decision. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what that decision is, but like you know all your options and like you know everything.
Yeah.
And that's just how we should all be informed about our health. I just do believe that.
100%. And I think that extends past health too. Like,
yes.
As if you're informed, you're able to make the decision that best fits you in all aspects of your life. Yes. I love that. And then shifting into more of like your STEAM field and profession in that sense, do you remember when you first started, or you first had an interest in STEAM, and like what sparked that interest?
I would say for me, what started my interest was very much art. At a young age, I thought that I was going to be like a visual artist. Even now, I really enjoy like crafts, textiles, and whatnot. But I think exploring through art just gave me a kind of freedom. Like when I struggled in other subjects, it gave me like the passion and the drive. And when I got a little better at like learning how I learn, and I started doing better in school, like I think a lot of those lessons I learned through art is what helped drive me through like science and like maths. And I've always been very interested in science, how the world works, always asking why. But like I think art just gave me like that dedication that I then took with me to my other subjects.
I love that. As like we talk about STEAM, because we like to include art, and it's always a conversation we're having where it's like we've had people ask us, well, like why STEAM, and isn't it STEM? And like it's important to highlight art, because art is also technical, and it also teaches you so many skills that you can also apply to quote unquote like harder skills, even though they're not really harder. But I love that perspective, like you going through art and that's how you found your way into STEAM.
It's just, I do stand by this, organic chemistry, that's just drawing pretty pictures.
I love that. I never thought of it that way. I'm terrible at chemistry. Maybe that's why I need to be better at art. So, and then was there a moment that you knew that you wanted to do public health? Like, yeah, this is where I want to go into, and this is kind of my passion, or how you found that?
So in my undergrad, I studied neuroscience and psychology, and I had a bit more of a background in research, which I really enjoyed, but it just felt, no matter how cool it was what I was doing, I was like, okay, the application of this is like 10 plus, if ever, years away. And there were just a lot of things right now that I saw and like wanted to deal with. Like I was very involved as president at my LGBTQ club, activist club at my university. And the topic that would always come up was just how people get treated, especially the trans folks among us, in the student health center. So I spent quite a bit of time like talking to like my fellow students, and then like bringing this up to like higher admin, and like working with the student center to just like make sure that one, they could hear us, and two, just some like basic things that they could do to change. And I feel like through that, I got more involved in like HIV prevention and like learning more about the PrEP services that the health center had, and like how can we like advertise this to our students, especially for like National AIDS Awareness Day. So it was really, I feel like during my extracurriculars that kind of sparked that. But the big thing was that when I was working as a PrEP and Hep C navigator at Housing Works, I was there during the Mpox outbreak in 2021. I worked at Housing Works, which most of our clients are LGBTQ, and most of our clients do not have insurance or are underinsured. We just had to work really, really hard to make sure that they were able to access the vaccine and treatment as needed. And it was really through a concentrated effort between us, the smaller like community health centers, and the city health department on like even like putting aside appointments just for our clients, because so many of the other ones were getting taken up by people who maybe had like the luxury of driving to places, had the luxury of not working, so they could take these time slots, and just making sure that like everyone in the community got covered. And I mean, despite everything, we're not in a current outbreak currently in New York, so like something went right. And that just really, I think that really inspired me, and that's what inspired me to go into graduate school and get my master's.
You did a lot in that as well. Like I think any step towards it makes an impact, and I think that's a great example of like you going into direct community work and helping in the greater picture. From a different interview we had, they were doing HIV testing, more on like PrEP testing, but they were doing PrEP testing for like pharmaceutical, and then how PrEP would affect trans bodies and trans like hormone therapy. But something that really spoke to me from that interview was how many folks have this misconception that PrEP is not for them. So I guess kind of what has been that experience for you in saying like this is preventative for everyone regardless of your identities, and how you view yourself, like if you are sexually active in any way, like it's still meant for you. I don't know if you could speak a little bit about that or from your experience.
Yes, definitely. So one, PrEP is for everyone. I think everyone should think about whether they want to be on PrEP, especially as right now there are so many ways that you can access it. And when I'm thinking about the trans community, it's come so far even from when I was starting to work in it in let's say 2021, because what I would run into often is with my transmasculine patients, and me included, is that our only option was Truvada. And the issue with Truvada is that some people can't tolerate it, mainly because, and I think this is so silly, the pill is made of lactose. So if you are lactose intolerant, that's not going to go well, which is ridiculous.
I didn't know that.
And so they made a second generation called Descovy, but they didn't really bother to test it on people with bodies like mine, so we can't use it. So that was kind of like, it's Truvada or nothing. But now we have the injectables out there, which were actually tested with everybody taken into mind. And I could say like, I take the every 2 month injectable, but the FDA fairly recently just approved a 6-month injectable, which I think I heard is right now being covered on Medicaid. Well, we'll see. But which is usually the first sign of it being covered on most insurances. So I think the main thing I would say is that like, you could be on PrEP and have an injection twice. You could have an injection twice every year, and that could have you covered. And it could be covered by your insurance. So I just think it's worth thinking about.
It's thinking about like 2 times a year, and then you being safe for the rest of the year and keeping your body safe.
Or, if you take daily medication, you could just add this to the list. It really depends on what you feel.
I love that. I love honestly, I didn't realize there was like that many varieties. I didn't even know it was injectable. So that's information for me too. Awesome. So I know that you work as well in HIV, and you also work in Hep C information. Is there anything regarding Hep C that you can talk about, either preventative or treatments, or what that looks like now?
Yes, I mean, one of the best things is that treatments are available and covered on Medicaid and Medicare, which is amazing. There are still some barriers, such as often getting people access to identification so that they can register for Medicaid and Medicare, but the fact that treatment is available and what was an issue before was just the exorbitant price that just simply no one could afford except the billionaires of the world. And it's now covered. And I think what's also important to remember is that these medications do not actually cost that much to manufacture. So like, we do have to recognize the greed in here too, but Hep C is curable. And there's more and more research coming out because they thought as well, oh, if you did treatment once, we couldn't do treatment again. It's going to be, it's not going to work. There's some talk of it may be less effective, but not that you can't do it again. So a lot of barriers that were in place are now starting to be removed. So like requiring like sobriety counseling or even requiring sobriety, we're starting to see that taken more and more away. So leading with like a harm reduction approach first is like, okay, this person has Hep C. They should not have Hep C in 9 weeks.
Wow.
They should start treatment immediately, or unfortunately it's like as soon as their insurance kicks in so it can be covered. But a lot of the places have found a way to make that process as quick as possible. And again, it's just astounding.
That's incredible. I was mentioning, like, for me, it's very personal, but it's crazy to think how much it's evolved since then. And I agree with medication. To produce medication, it's not as expensive as they're putting it out to be. Awesome. And then for someone from our community or someone that may be listening that wants to follow your path and is like, I want to do that, what would you advise them or what would you tell them to start?
I would say that everything is public health. That is something that my Dean of Students loves to tell us. And personally, I think it's true. I think no matter what you could do, just try to think, how is this impacting the public? How could this impact public health? And just go in that direction. For example, like I just saw a gap in the healthcare around my friends. And I just feel like, well, how could I make that better? And that kind of led me on the path I am today. And like, yes, my training in like psychology and neuroscience and like some of the other harder and I guess softer sciences helped. But I really think for public health, you draw on everything. Like I draw on the gender and sexuality classes I take just as much as I do on that one physics 2 class I took.
I love that. It makes you kind of like a holistic professional too.
Yes.
So based on your personal experience, both in academia and through your professional experience, do you think that there's any barriers to get into STEAM for the queer community?
Absolutely. I have to be honest that doing my major in neuroscience was really difficult. I was definitely not the first trans student most of these professors met, but I was, it seemed, the first one who like asked for them to use they them pronouns for me. And like, you know, there was a range of responses, but I always just, the best one was, I was wearing a they them pin, and when I came to them afterwards the class, they were like, oh, I thought you were just wearing that because you supported people who use they them pronouns. And I was like, okay, not quite. But that was the best. So it was a little rough, but not to sound cheesy, but there were some people in the year below and the year below that who were interested in neuroscience who were also trans. And just one of them was so scared about like if they could even go into that, just knowing like the faculty and like if they would be respected. And I was just like, you know, I feel that, and like I would like to be respected in that way, and like, so let me see. And they actually did end up doing the program, and it's so small that we have a lot of the same professors. So like I like to think that they got through some growing pains with me, and then they were lovely to my colleague, my future colleague.
I love that. It's always hard to be the first, but it's also so important to have someone be that advocate for everyone coming behind you.
And again, like this was only possible because I had other people who had done that before me, who inspired me, and people who like were able to hold my hand the entire way.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I look back on it, I'm like, I could have done psychology and gender and sexuality major, but I'm so happy I did. Like I find neuroscience so fascinating. I still love to read books like on those topics. On reflection, again, would I have taken physics too? Not too sure about that, but so be it.
I love that though, because I think that's also part of like a college experience or an educational experience. It's getting to study what you also are interested in, regardless like if you're going to be a professional in that specific field. If it's interesting to you, you're learning, and that's all that really matters.
Yes,
I love that. Do you think that your perspective and your background, and also like just where you have from, has one shaped your conversations and your work now? And do you think that that's been valued by your colleagues and counterparts?
I mean, I would say that especially in work, when I was a case manager and a prep navigator, I think it was really nice for my clients and also for me as well, is that just a lot of them like, we look the same. And that is not always the case. Even really when he went up to like my supervisor's level, that was not the case. But being able to offer like the healthcare like I would want, and like I want like my fellow like Black queer people to have, and like them also to see like this is a field where like, you know, you can go into this and we can have like these health conversations more on an even playing field. We don't have to have like this dynamic into it. And I don't know, I think that felt quite nice. And I would say like in my school experience, going to a Cooley school, I feel like it's very much a school for people who are currently working, like working to support themselves, have very varied backgrounds. I feel like our professors really take all of our like life experiences into account. And I learned so much from my classmates. Like it's an experience that just I have not had before in like to this intensity. And I feel excited about the next generation of public health professionals if this is the trend that I see.
I love that. I love that it sounds like it's inspiring, both for you, but also for the future and motivational. And kind of in that same vein, what changes do you think need to happen in schools or workplaces to really embrace diversity authentically? And in that case, also like in public health in general, to really embrace diversity?
I think that just has to be commitment and buy-in on every single level. I don't think it works if you just have one or two people with good intentions. Like that's great, but if we want to see like true like inclusion, it has to be from the top all the way to the bottom. Like having the option for students to, let's say, like change their name on the roster, add their pronouns in. Like there are so many small things. I mean, even just professors being down to call you something different than, let's say, is officially written down. This is also true for people who go by nicknames as well, like common courtesy. But I just think that is so important. I also think spaces, so having like an LGBTQ resource room, I just think that is also so important. So my grad school, it's just the grad school of public health and policy, so it's very small, but this past year they just opened up a queer and trans resource room, and it was only open like a few times a week, but I've been speaking to them about maybe like having it open more often. And I'm actually in the process with some friends of restarting the queer public health group. So it's just like, I think also like making space for community building, professional network building, and like having buy-in and support for that. In addition to support around inclusion of like pronouns and identity in our day-to-day life, that just makes being a queer and trans person in education and higher education less difficult.
It feels a little less lonely.
Yes.
Awesome. And then can you tell us a little bit about a project that you've worked on that you really loved and what made that so memorable for you?
So I think there's a few, But I think the one that really was my favorite happened this past semester, in the spring semester in my mixed methods class. We pretty much had the opportunity to take a project from beginning and end in like a mini research project. So I very interested in PrEP and trans health, and also injectable PrEP in particular. I wanted to investigate the facilitators and barriers around transmasculine people's uptake of injectable PrEP. And this came to me because, one, I'm on PrEP, and two, I know a lot of people who want to be, but for various reasons couldn't or don't have access to. Or I know fellow trans folks or transmasculine folks who can't take Truvada, so they're not currently taking PrEP. And I was just very curious about just investigating some of this. So I was able to interview someone, like an in-depth interview. I coded it using Deduce and just like hand coding it, and was able to write up a thematic analysis. Another project actually take with the same professor who I absolutely love, just incredible. But I did a communications and advocacy project, and it was pretty much born out of my own frustrations about being a trans person trying to access OBGYN care. So I was like, well, what if I could design like a program for OBGYN professionals and students so that they knew a little bit about pretty much like trans competent care, both like on the, okay, these are the stats, this is why it's important, but like practical advice, like this is how you can enact trauma-informed care. And so I ended up creating a like leaflet, which I handed out to everyone in class. And then I later found out, because a few of my classmates are like nurses or doctors, and like they were like, yeah, like I handed these to some of my colleagues. And even now, not this one, but like I made a zine out of my prior frustrations, and I like handed that zine to one of my providers and was like, please read this before we do anything. And like they actually did. So I just wanted to create like a tool that could be useful to like different people. Yes.
I bet that made a huge impact. I feel like that's going to be one of those things that you create that you don't realize will continue on way past your own legacy and knowledge of it, and just you inform one, and then that person will go on and share that eventually too. It's really cool. In your opinion, and this could be general, it could be more specific, but what would a better world look like for LGBTQ plus folks?
I feel like it would have to be fundamentally different. I think in order to have the best world possible, I do kind of believe in the mentality that we have to kind of go back to the bare bones and rebuild. I think we can do better with what we currently have, but like if we want true liberation for everyone, I just think that we need to prioritize, everyone. I don't think there should be people in the margins of society, and that includes LGBTQ people, people experiencing homelessness, people who use drugs. The way we do things is just not designed currently to take all of us into account. That said, I do think that there's a lot of small things we can do to make things better. I think each and every person can, stand up, be help with the future that we want to see. Like, I want to see if someone's being harassed, everyone in the street, like getting up and being like, ready to fight. It's just, I do believe that there are small things that each and every one of us could do to just make this world a bit more kind and a bit more habitable for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. It's that collective, right?
Yes.
Building community past just being in the same space, but truly having that empathy and understanding for people who you may not even know, but that if they need you in that moment, you're going to step in, and hopefully someone else would do that for you if that was ever the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. On a more personal note, do you have any professional or personal goals in the near future that you want to accomplish?
Sure. So, my big one is that I want to graduate my master's program, which I am on track to do in May of next year. Also, I just started a certificate program. It's called the CAPM, the Certified Associate Project Management certification. Just because my current internship, I'm doing a lot within project management and I really enjoy it, and I see a way that it's going to really tie in with like what I want to do in healthcare, especially in designing these programs on trans health for harm reduction. I just feel like project management skills are going to be important, and this is something that I can do right now to train up in some of those skills.
100%. Awesome. Yeah. And then are there, outside of work and school,
yes,
what are some things that you like to do or some hobbies that you enjoy?
Yeah, so I absolutely love to read. It has always been something that relaxes me. It's something that I used to do with my mum all the time growing up. Like, just brings me peace. Also a huge tea drinker. Like to do those two things at the same time a lot. I also love to go for walks, take in nature. I wish I had more of a green thumb, but I do like plants. I have my ones I have right now are a little sad, but I'll watch them when I get back. And then I would say the only other thing is that I'm quite crafty. In high school, really up until I was 18, I was very torn if I wanted to study like art and textiles or go down the psychology and neuroscience route. And that's what I ended up doing. But I still really enjoy that stuff. Like, I love to cross stitch. I love to knit. Really like making art on the sewing machine is my favorite. But I would love to be better at making clothes. That's something that I task myself to get better at over the next like 20 years.
Your life sounds so cozy. Just book, some plants, sewing, and some tea. That sounds so nice. And then, what advice would you give either your younger self or a young queer folk that is coming up and going into a STEAM field?
I think my advice would be take as many opportunities as you can. It's just, there are so many internship opportunities, part-time work. I mean, I know there are plenty of people who have literally just like emailed me like, hey, like, would you take me on for, let's say, five hours a week? And they've found ways to like get an internship that way, be it paid or unpaid. Like, I do believe everyone's work should be paid, and that really there should be no such thing as unpaid internships, if I'm being serious. But maybe, let's say you're young, you live at home and you're able to 1 hour a week volunteer your time. Like when I was younger, I used to volunteer at a charity shop, and like that was like one of my favorite things. So if you can find something that fulfills you, that all you can get paid doing, it's worth doing it. I just think that the more experiences you have, the more you know what you do and don't like, and that will stop you from getting too far down the path and like hating life. I know a lot of people who love their social work, but I just know so too many people who have gotten deep and then like wanted to pivot, and sometimes it's like, oh, that makes sense because it's a field that you can only really do once you have a certain qualification. So it's like, if only people could try this out a bit more and see if that's for them. So, and I think public health, while maybe not quite as extreme as that, can be one of those that, oh, you're working for the health department and now you realize this isn't for you. So try it out, see what you like. Doesn't matter if what you plan changes.
And I think that's also speaks to just education as a whole, the fact that you have to make such a big decision when you're still so young, and especially those who end up falling through and figuring out maybe that's not the best for them. And I think it speaks a lot to just finding, like, never limiting yourself to one decision you made in your life and thinking that you have to stick through that only. And there's other things that you can do and eventually try, and nothing really happens if you try and it fails, and you can try something else and it's fine and it'll evolve, and there's no really societal, well, you can put pressure on yourself for it, but there's no one really telling you you need to follow that, and you can follow what you're good at or what you are interested in. Is there anything that you'd like to add to this interview that we didn't talk about?
In my experience in harm reduction, like, a lot of these core principles have been around for decades now, but we are seeing more and more buy-in into harm reduction, that we have like things such as like supervised consumption sites. We have syringe exchanges that can be above ground, at least for now. And it's just amazing the leaps and bounds that has helped. But also I think a reassurance that no matter what happens, all of this work existed when it was highly, even more stigmatized than it is now, even more illegal than it was now, and they may do. And I just think that, like, you know, you can't take harm reduction away from the people. It's a mentality.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Paths from LGBT Tech. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to never miss another episode. Show your support and allow us to keep sharing these stories. Didn't get enough? Check out past interviews to hear from more amazing queer professionals in science, technology, engineering, art, and math. See you next time.